Joining me now is Craig Kelly, a representative from One Nation. Craig, welcome to the show.
No, great to be with you, Alex.
Well, look, One Nation is a party that always remained true to the soul of Australia, and right now there are urgent issues which Australians are going frantic over, and yet major parties have their fingers in their ears, completely ignoring the public outrage, and one of those is migration. Craig, I saw a bit of praise for opposition leader Peter Dutton promising to cut Labor's migration figures, but when you look at the detail, it's much of a muchness. I mean, Labor wants 185,000 migrants, Dutton wants 140,000 for 2 years, and then 160,000 every year after that. That's not what we're asking for.
Look, not at all. Peter Dutton's playing some tricky politics here because he knows if he keeps down the track of this net zero nonsense, that the only way to so-called stimulate the economy is going to be to keep importing people into the country. And remember, the numbers that Peter Dutton has been talking about is only the permanent intake. Now, when we look at our net, what we call our net migration rate or a net overseas migration rate, you've got to add the net permanent intake with the net permanent temporary visas being issued, because that's the extra number of people coming into the country, and that's the number that you need to accommodate with new housing, new infrastructure, hospitals, doctors, so on and so on and so on. Now, remember that number that we had, that net number, that used to be, and I've just got some numbers here, I went and had a look at them the other day, between 1991 and the year 2002, so I'll go back again. In the 27-year period, so we'll get 27 years from 1980 to 2006, right, which is a big period of migration for Australia, we averaged just under 100,000 new net migrants coming into this country per year. So 100,000 a year average for 27 years. And that took a lot of effort for the country to absorb that number of people. We had people coming in from Vietnam during that period. We had people coming in from all over the world, and 100,000 a year. Right? The Albanese government kicked that rate from 100,000 last financial year up to 528,000. And for the month of February alone, this current year, 2024 for February, they had 105,000 migrants come in, net new migrants coming to the country, 105,000 in the month of February alone. So we had more in that month of February than what we've been averaging for in the past over an entire year. Is it any wonder that rents are going through the ceiling? Is it any wonder that the hospital queues are lengthening, that you can't get in to see a doctor? We haven't kept up with the infrastructure, and these numbers are just absurdly too high. And they need to be cut not just at the margins, they need to be cut substantially.
Well, I don't know if Albanese and Chalmers understand, but I've just been shopping for a property to rent in the city, and I can tell you that I'm competing as a single person against groups of 5 students for the same properties, and they have this thing where they outbid you. So obviously 5 people can outbid a single Australian. And it's making it impossible for people who live here, who are born here, to live anywhere. And it's just outrageous. And that's why people are getting upset, particularly young people are getting upset now. But Australian capital cities, they are bursting at the seams. And you've mentioned, or you touched on there, that social cohesion is also breaking apart. We've got ethnic enclaves forming everywhere who go to war with each other over political events happening halfway across the world. And all of it is eroding this beautiful and peaceful and prosperous nation that we used to call Australia. Craig, why are governments so desperate to keep migration numbers high when individual Australians are getting poor and there are issues that clearly have to be solved?
Okay. Remember, Albanese's policies, which is also the Liberals' policies as well, of this nonsense of net zero, simply makes the economy less efficient. We're wasting billions of dollars on unproductive expenditure. We're seeing industry move offshore. So what happens? We are actually now in a GDP per capita recession. GDP per capita, that's your individual slice of the pie. So often we measure GDP of the total size of the economic pie of the country. But what really counts is each individual share, how many slices you've got to slice it up into. Now, what's happening? That everyone's slice of the pie is getting smaller because we're getting more people coming into the country faster than we're growing the economic pie overall. So people's slice is getting smaller. So we are actually in a GDP per capita recession. So Albanese's got to mask over that. He can't have the headlines of economy and recession. So what he does is just import more and more people into the country. It's nothing more than a giant Ponzi scheme. So when those people come into the country, they bring in with them a bit of cash. The economy gets a bit of a sugar hit. As you said, it pushes rents up. There's more food sold. You know, the Woolworths and Coles increase their profits and increase their sales. You know, there's more demand for clothing and things like that. So the demand goes up in society. That pushes the overall size of the pie up. And Albanese goes, look, aren't I wonderful? I'm growing the economy. When in fact, he might be growing the overall size of the economy through importing people, but each individual share is getting less.
Well, that's because they're growing it, as you say, out of proportion. So yes, it grows, but not enough to accommodate the amount of people that are coming in.